Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. I'm your host Hannah Zuberi and you're watching Justice for All Now. You're watching Justice for All on Muslim Network TV, America's only Muslim-focused TV channel. You can watch us on Galaxy 19, Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Today we're going to be just talking about Father Stan Swami, an 83-year-old Catholic Jesuit priest who was arrested on October 8th by the Indian National Investigative Agency, NIA. He had been arrested under false charges, and to date, he has not been released. We've previously done a show on Father Stan that you can watch on our YouTube channel. But we wanted to get an update on his situation and on the state of religious freedom in India. A little more about Father Stan for those who don't know about him. He's worked tirelessly for over 3 decades to uplift and empower tribal and ethnic groups as well as Dalits in India. He stood up for peace and justice and now is under arrest with no chances of bail. We'll be speaking today to Father Cedric Prakash again. Father Cedric was gracious enough to give us another chance to talk to him. Father Cedric is also a Jesuit Catholic priest from the Indian province of Gujarat. He's been a peace and reconciliation activist with a focus on advocacy, and he's internationally known for his work, and he's a prolific writer, particularly on constitutional and other human rights issues, environmental justice, and contextual spirituality. Thank you, Father Cedric, for being with us here today. We're really grateful for you to take time out and all your activism on behalf of Father Stan and also of the poor and impoverished in India and around the world. So, as I really thought that by now we would perhaps be speaking to Father Stan himself, that he would have been let go to keep an aging priest like him, 83 years old, in prison in India. And prison in India is no joke. In these conditions, under COVID, in the cold, I'm just wondering, where is the international outcry? Where are we at? Can you please give us an update on Father Stan Swami?
Thank you, Hannah, and Justice for All for giving me once again the privilege and the opportunity to speak on your channel. As I said last time, I love India. I love my country, and I love the beauty and diversity that characterizes India. Mm-hmm. India is the world's largest democracy today, just as the United States, we say, is the world's oldest democracy. And we have always cherished, from the time we became an independent country on the 15th of August, 1947, till date, all the democratic values and the directions that we have in our constitution. We gave a great constitution to India. We regard it as the best constitution in the world. It's taken from various constitutions, the American Constitution, the French Constitution, and the key values of this are justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. We cherish them, we uphold them, and we stand for them. And in the context of this Constitution of India, in the context of our democratic tradition, what I need to say is that having Father Stan Swami in prison today goes against the very fabric, the very ethos of what symbolizes India as a great and pluralistic country. On the 8th of October, Father Stan Swami was arrested from his residence in Ranchi, and now for more than 2 months, from the 8th of October till date, He is there languishing in a jail in Taloja, just outside Bombay. Um, yes, uh, there has been some kind of communications from him. He has made great friends with a lot of the prisoners there. He has some of those who are his friends, whom he knew from before, are around him, still supporting him. Father Stan suffers from Parkinson's disease.
Mm.
And when he was arrested that evening, he had with him a sipper glass, a glass which has a straw. And when he was incarcerated, his possessions, his sipper glass, and his voter's identity card and so on were all missing.
Mm.
So there were appeals. There was an appeal made in the special court. It was postponed to another date. It was postponed to another date till finally we were told, as he himself tells us, that he managed to get it.
Oh,
It's not easy for an 83-year-old man who suffers from Parkinson's disease to be able to even hold a glass or tumbler in his hands, which are all shaky. Besides, he needs warm clothes. He just went there with the barest minimum.
mm.
And finally, some things have reached him. But the fact that he's still in jail, in spite of our bail applications, in spite of the fact that, there is no evidence against him, only some remote connections. Okay, we are asking that he be released immediately and unconditionally. But till to date, the National Investigation Agency is not relenting, and Father Stan still languishes in jail.
So you sent us a letter that he had written. Can you tell us a little bit more about that letter? And I was reading it, and it really brings tears to your eyes. Like, my father is approximately that age, maybe a little bit younger, and just the connection to Ranchi. I have a uncle, and my cousins grew up in Ranchi. They went to school there, and in fact, at maybe 20, 25 years ago, my uncle was actually attacked by a Hindu extremist with a machete on his back, riding. Yeah, so we've experienced, and it's tough being a minority sometimes, in a place like that. But yes, if you could, so you shared excerpts from this letter. I'm going to read a little bit about that. Dear friends, thank you for your deep concern for my well-being. The jail authorities have been very considerate. So sweet, subhanAllah. Recently, I was given a sipper, which I was using for drinking water and tea. When I was taken by the NIA on 8th of October, I was told I had to meet with an officer in NIA camp offices in Ranchi to answer 5 or 6 questions. So, and then he goes on, so why is it taking so many months to answer 5 or 6 questions, Father Cedric?
This is absolutely what I've been saying, ridiculous. It is sad. It's a pathetic state of affairs. First of all, he was interrogated just before his arrest for more than 15 hours
Mm,
on different days, of course. And the investigations, the interrogation on him has gone on for a period of 2 years at
mm,
different times. And then we had these 15 hours close to the 8th of October. There was not a shred of evidence. And what has been happening was that he said, "Don't, if you want to arrest me in Ranchi.
mm,
This is the time of the pandemic. Why should I go to a jail and far away and so on, all kinds of things." Finally, they called him that evening on the 8th of October just to ask some questions. And he went very innocently, very trustingly.
mm,
He went alone with just his mobile phone and so on. And then they placed him under arrest. So much so he had to ask his confreres, his companions at the Jesuit residence where he was staying, to bring him a little bag, because they said they were going to take him to Bombay And he thought in a couple of days he would be back, I guess. And they took him the next morning by plane, produced him before a special court, and since then he has been incarcerated. Now, if you look, uh, we have had some communication almost weekly from him, either through phone or through the writings of someone else. And these are excerpts, what you have just read at this moment. There is not a sign of hate in the tone of his letter. No anger, no. In fact, he is praising the prison authorities. Finally, he has got a sipper glass, which has taken almost 2 months for it to reach him. He's cold and so on, but look at the tone of his letter, which is something that we need in today's world. More reconciliation, more compassion, more reaching out, even to those who might be hating us or who might be even directly or indirectly trying to put us into jail or even kill us.
And it's Christmas season is coming around. What is life like in prison? Can you tell us a little bit? For a lot of people, perhaps who've seen popular shows like Orange is the New Black and others like that, they think that is what prison is like. What is prison like in India?
See, prison, I've had, because of some award I got from the national government, I've had a privilege of visiting some prisons, and very especially the one year in Ahmedabad. And mainly the under trials at different times. I have been visiting prisons, yes. And the prisons in India are, I must say, in a very sorry state. The under trials are housed in these big barracks and so on. Fortunately, at this moment, Father Stan has a separate cell to himself, with what we would call a Western toilet, not the Indian style of toilet, which would be very, very difficult for a feeble 83-year-old man like him. And in that sense, he has a better facility than many of the others. But the conditions are very bad. So what we have started also simultaneously is a campaign all across the country to go to jails over this Christmas season to give gifts to the under trials in the name of Father Stan, in the name of all those who are illegally incarcerated. We have tried a campaign. Each state, sometimes may have permission to give gifts. It could be blankets, it could be sweaters, it could be pullovers, it could be warm clothing, it could be just food stuff. But what we're asking people across our religious divide, all men and women of goodwill, because Christmas is a time of good news for all men and women of goodwill, to go to the least of our sisters and brothers who are actually suffering. We're not talking about the crime, whether they are guilty or not. Just now, to be in a prison in any part of the world, and particularly in a country like India, is definitely not the best thing to be happening to any human being, whatever the sin or the crime they may have committed. It's lonely, you're despised, you're rejected, you're ostracized, even sometimes from your own. So thanks to, in a way, we don't want Father Stan to be incarcerated, but today, besides the postcard campaign, which we have just launched, I'll speak more about it a little later. We also have, for this Christmas season, a campaign so that we can give some kind of gifts to prisoners under trials in different jails and prisons all across the country.
Lovely. And that's a apt tribute to Father Stan and others like him who are languishing in prisons for many, many years. And this is particularly, and I hope to talk a little bit about this, because this is particularly concerning when these cases are not looked at from the religious freedom lens and the human rights lens from many parts. I wanted to ask you, what is the international reaction thus far on Father Stan's case? We've seen cases where the government has targeted minorities. For example, the case of Asia Bibi in Pakistan is a very, very famous case. Lots of much deserved attention being given to it. Why is there not such a attention being given to Father Stan's case?
Actually, efforts have been made.
Okay.
There have been certain protests and so on in different parts of the world. In the United States, in London, we have got, but these are fewer groups.
Mm-hmm.
True, there has not been an international outreach, but there have been efforts in different countries across the world.
Yeah, we have some photographs, I believe, of some of the protests that have taken place.
Yeah. So people have gone to the Indian embassies, met the Indian ambassador, maybe met the High Commissioner, say where UK, London is concerned, given a memorandum asking for the immediate and unconditional release. There have been efforts. There have been talks with European Union parliamentarians. There have been people who have been concerned in different parts of the world, who have made their intention, their kind of sign of support, of solidarity for Father Stan known, and so on. But then, unlike the Asia Bibi case, there has not been international outreach because these are two different cases. And so on. But then it's not only for Father Stan. We need an international outreach for the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, which is one of the most draconian laws in any democracy anywhere in the world. And it's not merely Father Stan, it's 15 others who have been incarcerated under this law in the similar case, and many others for other reasons.
Can you tell us more about this law for those in the audience who might not know about it?
Yes, it's called the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. It's not new. It goes way back to 1967 to a previous government. But over the years, and very especially since 2014, since this government came into power, now there have been many amendments. And what has been happening is that this law is made even draconian. Mm-hmm. So formally, if you belong to a group which is banned, which they say is anti-national, is terrorist, then that whole group is banned per se. Now, according to the new amendment, if you have had any connection, even a remote connection with anyone who might be a member of the so-called outlawed group, you can be incarcerated. Basically, the law says many things, but I would like to highlight just three dimensions of this law. First of all, you are just arrested and put under this dreaded UAPA, which I say is a draconian law. You cannot easily get bail. Mm-hmm. We hardly have anybody being released on bail, those who have been arrested under this law. In fact, just now there is somebody who's even a little younger than Father Stan, but he's seriously sick, a very famous poet of India called Varavara Rao. Finally, the court has allowed him to be in a private hospital. His family can visit him, but he's still not released on bail as of now. His petition was going to come up either today or tomorrow, and we are hoping and praying that he at least would get bail. There are many others now who have been incarcerated under this thing that happened in a place called Bhima Koregaon, where years ago, 200 years ago, there was an uprising of the Dalits. And the Dalits come together every year on the 1st of January to observe that day. On the 1st of January 2018, there was some violence. in the original reports, those mentioned in the violence all belonged to the the Hindutva groups, an extremist right-wing Hindu group that kind of started the violence. Soon, a lot of their names are taken out from the charge sheets, and anybody who was remotely connected with the organizers of a meeting that was held the previous day in a different place called the Elgar Parishad, or who were apparently there in the Bhima Koregaon, were arrested at different times, beginning August 2018. And since then, some of them have been languishing in jail without bail for more than 2 years. For the just about 2 months. Now, we are asking, and most of the opposition parties today want the total repeal of this draconian law, which does not suit any democracy, and especially in India, because anyone who's dissenting, anybody who questions government policies, anybody who's visible and vocal and takes a stand for the Dalits, for the Adivasis, the tribal, the ethnic groups who are exploited, is bound to be put into jail under this draconian, this dreaded law.
This is, and thank you for giving us that breakdown, because this law has been used against journalists, against student organizers, and against faith leaders. I wanted to ask you this because as last week, the State Department's report came out on countries of particular concern, and India was not listed as one of them. It was not even put on the special watch list for religious freedom violations. And generally, when we look at the definition that the U.S. State Department gives on this, it is violations concerning torture, concerning arrest without reason, inhibiting people's right to liberty and justice and life. So now when we look at that breakdown, and we look at what is happening in India, what would you be I wanted to, and I understand it's a sensitive question. So I wanted to ask you, what is the state of religious freedom in India, in your opinion?
Yes, this is an important question. It's a very, very sensitive question. I've spoken about it before. I've testified some years ago before the US Commission on International Freedom, and some from India blacklisted me because of that. But I believe that every single citizen anywhere in the world must have religious freedom. The freedom to live his or her religion, the freedom to preach, practice, and propagate our religion, which is guaranteed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and is also there in our Constitution as a fundamental right. But let us see so when the State Department report came out sometime last week, some of us definitely were very, very concerned that India was neither listed as a country of particular concern or on that special watch list, in spite of the recommendation from the US Commission for International Religious Freedom. So my first question is, why is the Indian government not allowing the US CIRF to visit India to find out the status of the religious freedom? Look at several international watchdogs that look at religious freedom and see where they rate India. And, these are not spies who come in and so on. Let us say what has happened in this last 1 month alone in India, or say 2 months. Go back from to October 8th, the arrest of Father Stan Swami. He is a Catholic priest, a Jesuit priest, and he has taken a stand for the Adivasis, for the downtrodden. He has fought against powerful vested interest tried to help a lot of the young Adivasi, that's tribal boys mainly, and maybe some girls who have been incarcerated to be released. He has been working with civil society groups. He has been talking about the Forest Rights Act, the PESA, which is a very special provision given to the tribal areas in the country for their self-determination. He has been incarcerated. Then
Mm.
what happens? Several other Christians, pastors and others, and even Christian places of worship have pastors have been denied the possibility of praying with groups. Some have been beaten up.
Mm.
Houses of worship have been damaged in different parts of India. This is regular reporting that happens in the media. This is about Christians. Look at what is happening to our Muslim sisters and brothers here in this country. We have had the UP government coming up with the most draconian policy that perhaps is there in the world. It's called um, a policy to prevent interfaith marriages. The whole argument is that Muslim boys are marrying Hindu girls and so on. And they used a very derogative term.
Mhm.
I'm using it, though I use it with a lot of caution. It's called love jihad.
Mhm.
Okay, and it's become a very it's not only pejorative, but it's also very derogative. Okay, and it hurts definitely the feelings of
Uh,
others. Yeah, go
Thomas,
ahead.
in this, is this interreligious marriage between Hindus and Muslims as big an issue as the BJP is making it out to be?
Not at all. Not at all. They cannot give cases. They
Mm.
cannot give instances. And the point is, even if there are, if Hindus and Muslims want to marry each other, an adult, a boy and a girl, what business does the state have to interfere in that?
Mm.
Okay, the state has anything that is forced, anything that is kidnapped, anything which is forceful, whether it is a marriage, whether it is maybe something sexual or whatever it is wrong.
Mm.
And we have enough of provisions in our criminal code of procedure to be able to address this.
Mhm.
We don't need a legislation which denigrates a whole religion. What has happened now in Karnataka? They have started a new law that is going to prevent anyone and everyone from killing literally all cattle.
Mm.
Uh, some Hindus believe that the cow is sacred and so on. In many parts of India, the cow is not killed or not eaten as beef, but bullocks and even buffaloes and so on. Now Karnataka has brought it's mainly to target the Muslims.
Mm.
What is happening now? We have hundreds and thousands. You can see it on your TV screens all over. Um, from all over India, they have come mainly from Punjab and so on. The farmers who have been attacked by these three anti farmer policies,
Mhm.
which were steamrolled by this current government. Now, what is happening? They're not looking at them as farmers.
Mm.
They're looking at them as a minority religion, as Sikhs, because the ones who give India their rice, the rice and the wheat through their sweat, to their toil, are definitely our Sikh farmers, and
Mm.
you can see hundreds and thousands of them all in and around Delhi, and it's the 19th day today or the 20th day because we're already on the 15th of December here in India. They have been protesting in the cold. The government is not relenting. They are asking for clearly a repeal. Now they are targeting these farmers because of their religion, using the word Khalistan and Khalistani. They have
Mm.
nothing to do. They are giving the examples of some of these Khalistan flags, which are seen in Canada, the United States. I'm not sure where, but it's not here in this actual and legitimate protest, which most of the country is supporting today.
In
They're calling them
Manslaughter,
terrorists.
And aren't some of those farmers also from other states as well?
Yes,
Because
yes, yes, yes.
the
It's not only
farmers.
from Punjab, but since Punjab was closest to Delhi, they have come from all over India, and they are protesting within their states too.
Mm,
But they have very tactfully made it a religious issue
mm,
against the Sikhs. Okay. So now, if you're talking about religious freedom in India, if somebody is fighting for their legitimate rights as farmers,
mm,
how does religion come into play? I would like to know.
yeah.
If somebody is a young man and a young woman are in love with each other because they have met at work and want to get married, how does religion come into play? I don't know. Okay, if somebody wants to tell people about their own religion, uh, okay, that's definitely a religious act,
Mhm,
but then one has the legitimate right to do so. Or if you want to have an interfaith prayer respecting the religious beliefs of every group, why should that be prevented?
mm.
But this, sadly, I'm telling it to all your viewers and those who will watch this channel even later, this is the sad and unfortunate state of affairs in India. And I sincerely hope that the State Department takes cognizance of all this.
What was the local reaction, general public reaction to these laws being passed? Aside from the bucks, I understand we see online the trolls that come out or the massive statements that come out from supporters of the the Pariwar. But what is the general public's reaction to these laws?
See, the general public, see, most of India is not narrow, is not exclusive.
Mm,
It's not fundamentalist, it's not extremist, and that is the beauty of our country. But and most of them would be against it.
mm,
But when you have the majority, either in a local parliament, what we call the legislative assembly of a state,
mm,
or in the national parliament, okay, they just steamroll almost anything and everything. You create the bogey that all Christians are converters,
oh,
all Muslims are terrorists, and so on. And you tell a lie 1,000 times, and people tend to believe it. And for that, you have a laptop media who's controlled, by certain money bags, a certain political ideology, and they just try to spew venom, hate, divisiveness, and it's again the pluralistic fabric of the country.
country.
So, but the fact is, the ground reality very clearly tells us that people would like to marry the person of their choice. They would like to worship in the religion of their choice, and they would not like the state to be dictating to them on what they eat, what they should believe in, what they should wear, and above all, whom they should marry.
Mm. I have another concern about this. Looking at what is happening, so the conversion laws are passed. Now, this marriage law has passed in some states and is spreading to other states. Uh, the Meat Beef Act has been
Some
clearly
states,
spread.
yes.
Uh, so now, what is next? What do you think will be? And we also hear about a law that you cannot open up a bank account if you have any ties to Muslim nations, something of that sort as well. If you could share something, if you have heard about that as well. What's next? What sort of religious-based laws do you see coming up if things are?
See, we really do not know, because trying to understand the mind of the government, they can do almost this current regime, they can do almost anything at any time. They
Mm,
have the numbers in parliament, okay, and without just lay the farm bills, everyone begged of them to send it to a select committee. Everyone said there must be greater debate. There was no opposition, they just steamrolled it, okay, and that has been the major bone of contention. So that is why the farmers are out on the streets to say that it hurts the interest. So what they're going to do next is but they are playing the religious card very effectively in a very divisive manner. And the ones who are targeted are definitely the minorities of this country, as is so blatantly evident to what is happening in the country today. And the great thing is that most Hindus do not support what this government is doing. That should uh, be placed on record. It is a few people who have managed to get power into their hands, and with their agenda, which is to establish the Hindutva agenda in the country, that is playing its card out in a very systematic, manipulative, and effective manner.
Mm. So, do Christians face the same housing issues as Muslims do? I'm seeing things on, a lot of times we hear it from social media, but you see signs of no Muslims, don't, Muslims should not apply. Um, so, do Christians face similar housing issues?
Um, Christians do face, especially in particular areas in different parts of the country, but definitely not as much as the Muslims face, especially in the bigger metropolitans, even in Ahmedabad city where I live in. You
Mm.
know, if you're a Muslim, you cannot buy a house, an apartment in the western side of the city. We have practically no Muslims living in this side. You can still be a Christian and have it. But then in many areas, there are conditions. In many areas, there are stipulations that you cannot eat non-vegetarian or whatever it is. But the point is, we have plenty of non-vegetarian restaurants in the city of Ahmedabad. Okay.
Mhm.
And the big question is, who's frequenting them? You don't see any Muslims and Christians in these restaurants. Okay.
Father,
So that is the hypocrisy,
When,
you know.
when that happens, is it done by people or is it state mandated? Because I think that is where the US State Department, what they have said is many of these policies are done by the public. If a mob comes and attacks a Christian or lynches a Muslim, that's a mob. That's not the state doing it. Um,
Yes, there is a very fine dividing line between this. No mob can take law and order in their own hands if they do not have a kind of a legitimacy from the powers that are. Let me state this.
mm,
Okay, like for example, after in Rajasthan some time ago, one of those who was arrested for lynching a Muslim came back home. He was garlanded by a minister,
mm,
okay, from the central government, and we have any amount of cases. How do people take law and order into their own hands and get away with um, a sense of immunity? They do things with impunity, and they have a certain amount of immunity. It's just because the system is such that it favors those who are violent. If
mm,
those who are violent were put in place, a stand was taken. If the state governments or the central government did not tolerate, we have Supreme Court rulings to say that lynching has become the new normal in India. They wanted to stop.
mm,
But what has happened to all those people who were for some time arrested because of the lynching? Nothing happens to them. You know, they have their political patronage. So
mm.
it's a very fine dividing line. We say it's mobs, we say it's people, we say it's anybody. It's not the state and the government, but these people would not have had the guts to do it if there was no tacit approval from the powers that are. I want to make it clear.
And that is something truly we believe that this designation would be a nudge to bring India back to the center of pluralism. It would not be a punitive punishment, but a encouragement to go back to its defining principles.
Definitely.
And this is something that But we also see, as global politics plays out and China rears its very authoritarian head and is spreading its empire across the world, the United States will want to keep India as an ally. And this geopolitical game hurts people. It hurts the very real people who are living in these countries, and it changes the trajectory of these countries. And this is an extreme concern of ours over here as we watch it from there, from sitting over here. But particularly for you, where you are, this, how are communities, your communities, responding to this as the violence grows?
Yeah, as the violence grows, okay. See, a lot. I'm a priest. I'm a Jesuit. Um, but it's the ordinary people, the ones living in the villages, in the midst of other people who are frightened. There is a fear that is, you know, there are prescriptions in place to say, beware, otherwise this will happen to you. And people, when they speak to us, are genuinely afraid. And for example, look at any organization like Amnesty in India. Uh, they literally had to close down the operations for taking a stand about what was happening in Kashmir, the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, what has happened to the CA protesters, the Citizenship Amendment Act, which is blatantly unconstitutional, and it focuses on people of a particular religion, and this is serious. But so you close down. Now there is some organizations working for the poor, working for the empowerment of the marginalized sections of society, working in education, health sectors, and so on, are gradually throttled, because now the government has made the whole FCRA law, more stringent, you know, with with many more literally obnoxious elements in getting money from abroad. So the point is, India is getting a lot of money from abroad. Both the government of India, we are borrowing heavily, and so on. So only if you're working with the poor, with the marginalized, with the minorities, with the excluded, then you get throttled.
Hmm.
But if you're a big player, if you're a corporate sector, then you can do whatever you want, and you can profit, to a great extent. This is the hypocrisy, of what is taking place in our country, and I guess in many other countries of the world today.
Yes, this rise in fascism is not unique to India.
Yes,
But
definitely not.
definitely, but the point is also that if, as India joins the game, the big leagues, with the rest of the world, then human rights and religious freedom have to keep up as well. And so that is what is extremely troubling. We're towards the end of our time. I think we have a little bit of more time that I wanted to. There are some questions that we have from our audience. Some people are asking about cases of an I believe an Australian missionary. There was a
Yes, Graham Staines.
Stains, and they were wondering what had happened to that case. If
Yeah, the person, Dara Singh, was arrested. Graham Staines was there working. He was a missionary, yes, but he also cared for those who were affected by the leprosy disease.
Mhm.
Um, and he, with his two sons, were burnt alive some years ago. And then a little later on, this man was arrested, and so on. And finally, now he's out there in the open release. Nothing happens. The whole wheel goes the full circle, where those who continue their acts of violence do so, as I said earlier, with impunity, and with an impunity from the powers that are.
I, yeah, when I we were doing an analysis of all the different levels of how religious freedom can be impinged in countries, and as we went through them, just taking a look at when we say state, so the Indian police, torture is a method that is used regularly by the Indian police. This is not just the BJP government. It might have been elevated under this government, but this is throughout. So how that if we look at arresting people without cause, disappearances, even
Yeah.
the right to live, and this is a part of the Indian constitution as well, and I wanted to quote this, that article 21 of the Constitution of India provides that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Life in article 21 of the Constitution is not merely the physical act of breathing. So this um, impingement on the life of people, really like throttling them, not being able to live their full dignified lives. Is this something that is, should this not be of a greater cause of concern for people? Because honestly, when we look at it from this far away, and especially after having worked on genocide zones in different countries, uh, we believe this trajectory is so dangerous, because what we saw in Burma, what we saw in Bosnia, when the media has turned against minorities, where the media turned against a particular group of people, it was so much easier to convince the good guys, the regular neighbors, the to
Yeah.
just this happened in Germany. It was just the regular people who just went along with what the government was doing. So I know I've said a lot in this, but as
Yeah.
we wrap up the show, I'd really would like to hear your thoughts on these particular things that have been troubling me.
Yes, these are the things that trouble me too. That is why I am agreed to be on your show tonight. Justice for all. And when you're speaking about Article 21, okay, it definitely means right to life, personal liberty. As one of our justices said it very strongly and eloquently in the case of a famous pro government media man recently, about he should not be deprived of his personal liberty. Our argument is fine, we do agree with you 100%. Personal liberty is important, but personal liberty cannot be selective.
Mhm.
It should reach the poorest of the poor. Mahatma Gandhi, you see him just behind me, gave us a talisman to say, whatever you do, let the face of the poorest of the poor be your meter. Let that be your yardstick. His or her pain, his or her suffering, his or her reality. And the point is, what happens if there is a poor person who is taken into jail for robbing even, a pair of sandals from some temple or so on? They're beaten up black and blue. If somebody belongs, but if you're a high profile, if you're a powerful person, even if you have committed the greatest crimes in the country, and we all know who are the big criminals in any country, and particularly in India. Nothing happens to them. But I'm saying is there is, as I said earlier, there's a level of hypocrisy. You have one set of rules, you have one set of punishments, of judgments to one group of people because they belong to the fringes of society, because they are marginalized, because they're excluded, because they don't have that wealth that can buy up people, you know and you have another set of rules for literally criminals who can get away with murder, literally. So the point is, we need to look at issues that are systemic today in India, yes, and in other parts of the world. We have to address the whole, say, Article 21 of our Constitution, the right to life. What about livelihood, which is so connected? And the point is, life is also means a life of dignity,
Mm.
a life of equity, a life of fraternity, a life in which justice justice triumphs. Our national motto, which is emblazoned on our national icon, which is the three lions of the Emperor Ashoka, is Satyameva Jayate. Truth shall triumph. If the truth does not triumph for the poorest of the poor, for the excluded, for the marginalized, what nation are we talking about? What
Right.
democracy are we talking about? What right to life are we talking about? I think justice and truth complement one another, and it should be based on that dimension of dignity, equality, and fraternity of all.
Right. Thank you so much. I'd like so perhaps if we could pull up the postcard campaign that you were referring to earlier, so people can know about that.
Yes, on the 10th of December, the Universal Day for Human Rights, International Human Rights Day, we launched a huge postcard campaign. It began in Calcutta with a Jesuit companion there, Father Jyoti, and with a lot of civil society. Basically, it was sent separate postcards to the Prime Minister of India and the Home Minister of India, asking for three very specific things. First of all, it's there on the postcard, um, um, immediate, unconditional release of Father Stan and all those incarcerated under the UAPA. Then we have asked the repeal of the UAPA and all the draconian laws of the country. And the third is because it came at a time of the farmers, the anti-farmer protest. We have also added that for good measure. Also, we want these three farm laws to be taken back. It is a campaign for Father Stan, but also for all those incarcerated for a similar charge, and for all those under the draconian laws. We want a repeal of all draconian laws in the country, anti-people measures, and particularly those which are affecting the farmers of today. And thousands of postcards have been posted in all languages from every corner of India in the last 4 or 5 days since the 10th of December.
Wow, that's a beautiful show of solidarity, and I hope someone.
I hope some of your viewers sent letters
Yeah,
also to India or emails
yes,
asking for the repeal of this.
definitely. We have a letter that we've been meaning to send to Prime Minister Modi as well. So yes, so thank you so much for your time, Father Cedric, and for being here and giving us, sharing your wealth of wisdom with us. It's every day seems to get closer and closer to something that is sort of a place of point of no return, and we really, really hope the world community and Indians themselves stop this government from going to that point. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you again. To all of you,
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Justice for All.
okay. To all of you who join us on Muslim Network TV, I'm really glad to really excited to share news that we're going to be having a end of the year, December 31st. We're going to be presenting to the world and officially launching. We've had a soft launch of Muslim Network TV, but December 31st we'll be coming together and presenting the master plan, why we need this television channel to present views like ours, to present justice, to present equity, to present fairness, and everything good that our faith teaches us. And for that, we'll be #broadcasting Muslims on December 31st. Please do join us. Assalamu alaikum.